Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 7. I was so excited for this season. When this show first debuted, I was in 3rd grade. I genuinely cried tears of joy when they announced they were doing a revival. Sorry this review is a bit late. Last week was finals week for my school, so I had to really study and, get that stuff done, but I have this review here now. This review will get into spoilers, just so you guys know. I think this season's been out long enough that if you cared about spoilers, you would have watched it already. So yeah, let's get started with the plot. So before I get into specific plot details, I just want to compliment the animation. With a couple exceptions, this show is better animated than it's ever been. I also want to shout out the score by my dude Kevin Kiner. He manages to mimic John Williams while at the same time add his own flavor to it. The score is much better than you'd expect something on a TV budget to be. There's 3 main story arcs this season. There's the Bad Batch arc, the Martez Sisters arc. StarWars.com calls this arc Ahsoka's Journey, but I'm going to call it Martez Sisters because I want to, and the Siege of Mandalore arc. The Bad Batch arc is solid enough. I remember watching it when it was unfinished on StarWars.com. There's some good emotion with the Echo stuff, fun new characters, and some fun action. I like the change they make to the end of the episode where Echo goes with the Bad Batch because it gives him some character development. It's not bad, it's just pretty standard Clone Wars, kind of what you would expect. The second arc is the Martez Sisters. This arc is the worst of the 3. There's 2 unlikable new characters, boring villains who are just there to set up the villain of the next arc, some very weak action, it's a lot of chasing and some jumping and shooting, nothing really interesting. The animation feels choppy and poorly directed, and it's surprisingly slow-paced for something that's only 4 20-minute episodes. The episode Dangerous Debt is completely filler. It begins with the characters in jail, then ends with the characters in jail. It's entirely filler. But the last arc, the Siege of Mandalore arc, is not only the best arc of the season, but it's one of the best, if not the best arc in Clone Wars. It might be the best piece of Star Wars media since Empire Strikes Back, and I don't hesitate to say that. The writing, direction, and story get noticeably better. There's some great character moments between Ahsoka, Rex, Bo-Katan, etc. The scene where Ahsoka meets the 501st again and their armor is painted made me tear up. I'm glad that for the last story arc they decided to focus on Ahsoka and Rex because we already know what's going to happen to Anakin, Obi-Wan, Padme, Yoda, etc. And I'm glad that they decided to focus on the characters that we didn't quite know what happened to. Plus, these 2 characters were probably the primary 2 characters that were introduced by this show or by the movie that preceded it. And so I think they are kind of, in a way, the 2 main characters of the show. They're the ones who the show is really about. There's some great action. This scene from the trailer is one of the best action scenes in the show. There's an awesome lightsaber duel between Ahsoka and Maul. Thank God for Ray Park because he came back into the mocap for this and it works so well. The second half of this arc deals with Order 66 and it is heartbreaking. The scene where Ahsoka senses what Anakin has done is amazing. I love how they use the actual dialogue from Revenge of the Sith. The scene where Ahsoka takes Rex's helmet off and he's tearing up it really, really just stomped all over my emotions. I think that they do a really good job making these episodes suspenseful, even though we already know what's going to happen. The last episode will have you on the edge of your seat, even though you know because of Rebels that Darth Maul, Ahsoka, and Rex all survive. I'm going to talk about the last scene now. I think that this last scene is the perfect way for the show to end. It shows Vader grieving for Ahsoka in his own way, and him realizing that everything that he ever cared about is truly gone. I love the final shot. The show is called The Clone Wars, so it makes sense that a clone helmet would end the show. So yeah, let's move on to characters in the Bad Batch arc. Captain Rex is basically the protagonist here. The conflict and the eventual bond he grows with the Bad Batch is standard, but it's still handled well. I really like how each member of the Bad Batch has their own distinct personality. It's not just 4 different versions of another person. I also have to shout out D. Bradley Baker for voicing every single clone trooper in this entire series, and the fact that you can always tell which clone trooper it is, even though every single one has a similar voice. Let's move on to the Martez Sisters arc. I like what this arc does for Ahsoka. She's in a weird place and hasn't quite figured herself out. I enjoy the dynamic she has with the sisters. She gets to see a different perspective of the Jedi. However, both Martez sisters are very unlikable. The main one is just flat and bland, while the other one is just flat out despicable. The villains are just generic alien crime lords. But of course, the Siege of Mandalore has the best characters. It handles its characters amazingly. Ahsoka and Rex have satisfying character arcs. Darth Maul gets treated like the badass he's supposed to. It gives Jesse a bit of development. I even felt a bit for Bo-Katan, who's a character I hadn't really cared much before. And even though we only got to see a little bit of Anakin and Obi-Wan, the scenes they do get are great. They reminded me why I love the show as much as I did. Overall, some pretty great character moments. The only fault I would have is that I wish we got to see some more of the classic Clone Wars characters like Mace Windu, Commander Cody, Padme, and even some villains like Ventress, Count Dooku, General Grievous, Cad Bane, etc. But the characters they do focus on work very well. So yeah, to wrap up, the third arc is so much better than the second that it elevates the entire season. I'd give the Bad Batch arc a mixed leaning positive review, the Martez Sisters arc a negative review, and the Siege of Mandalore arc an extremely positive review. This season, particularly the last arc, does what the series does best. It adds weight to the prequels, making them more enjoyable to watch. So yeah, that's it. That's my thoughts on Star Wars The Clone Wars, the final season. What did you guys think of it? I, for one, am really happy that they brought this show back for a final season, even though I'll admit that it wasn't as great as maybe it could have been. It's nice to see my favorite show from when I was a kid finally get wrapped up and get a proper conclusion. So yeah, I'll have some more videos out soon. I'll probably have a Tiger King review and a video where I talk about Colin Trevorrow's episode 9 script. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Bye.